Beloved, there comes a moment when heaven sends a whisper into the weary soul, a divine announcement that the season of weeping has reached its conclusion. Today I have come to tell you, not by human word, but by the Spirit's assurance, that the end of your tough time has arrived. God has watched your tears, He has counted your sleepless nights, and He declares, "Enough is enough." The hand that formed the universe has now turned in your direction. What was once your valley of sorrow will soon become your mountain of testimony. Many of us have walked through nights that felt endless, seasons where prayers seemed to echo back in silence, and every step forward was met with resistance. But you see, the silence of God is not His absence. When heaven seems quiet, it is because the Master is preparing the stage for a new chapter. The potter does not speak while shaping the clay. He speaks when the vessel is ready to be displayed. And now, child of God, the potter says you are ready. Your pain has refined you, not destroyed you. The fire that once frightened you has purified your heart, and the pressure that almost broke you has birthed power within you. When the Israelites groaned under the weight of Egypt's bondage, heaven heard their cry. For years it looked as if God had forgotten His promise. But at the appointed time, God said to Moses, "I have seen the affliction of my people. I have heard their cry. I have come down to deliver them." That same divine voice is echoing through eternity today. I have come down to deliver you. What held you yesterday cannot hold you anymore. The chains that bound your progress are snapping even now, not because of your strength, but because of divine timing. Every trial has an expiry date, and yours has just been stamped complete. Do not mistake the shaking for destruction. When the storm came upon the disciples in the boat, they feared for their lives. But in that same storm walked the Lord on the water. What they thought would drown them actually became the path through which they saw His glory. Your tough time was never meant to kill you. It was designed to reveal Him. The storm that terrified you will soon become the testimony that strengthens others. The very waves that rose against you will carry you to the other side. When Joseph was thrown into the pit, betrayed by his brothers and forgotten in prison, it seemed as though destiny had turned its back. Yet heaven was not silent. It was aligning everything in perfect order. At the right time, God turned the prison key, and Joseph was lifted from darkness into destiny. The pit was necessary. The betrayal was necessary. The waiting was necessary. Without the breaking, there would be no blessing. And I tell you now, your preparation season has served its purpose. What was hidden in pain will now manifest in power. Many have laughed at your struggle. Some have doubted your calling, but those who mocked you will soon marvel at what God is about to do. Every tear you have sown will return as a harvest of joy. Every no you received will turn into a divine yes that no man can cancel. The same ground that bore your shame will now host your celebration. You will not end in disappointment. You will end in divine appointment. So lift up your eyes from your pain. The clouds of sorrow are breaking apart. The dawn of restoration is here. Heaven has already written your turnaround. God has not just seen your suffering, He has scheduled your comeback. The wind of change is blowing, not tomorrow, not next year, but now. The Spirit is saying, "It is done." You may not feel it yet, but faith is not about feeling. It's about knowing. Stand firm, because your midnight has ended and the morning star has risen. Every battle has prepared you for this moment. Every delay was divine training. Every loss was a hidden lesson. Now, the season of laughter has come. You will sing again, dance again, and dream again. God's message for you today is simple yet powerful. The end of your tough time has arrived. Don't look back with regret. Look forward with expectation. The story is shifting. The pain that once defined you will soon be a memory that reminds you of his faithfulness. The same mouth that cried in the dark will soon shout in the light, "The Lord has done it." This is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your victory. The heavens are declaring your turnaround. Walk in faith, speak with boldness, and step into the new season prepared for you. Because when God declares an end to hardship, no power in hell or earth can extend it. There are moments in every believer's journey when heaven seems silent. You pray, yet no answer comes. You cry, but the heavens appear closed. You fast, but nothing seems to move. You begin to wonder, has God forgotten me? But let me tell you today, God's silence is never his absence. When it looks like nothing is happening, that is when God is working the most. His silence is not neglect, it is strategy. He is arranging pieces you cannot see, aligning hearts you have not met, and preparing circumstances that will unfold in his perfect time. The waiting season is not a wasted season. It is where your faith is purified, your character is strengthened, and your destiny is refined. When a teacher gives a test, they do not speak. Their silence is not rejection, it is observation. They want to see what the student has learned. Likewise, when God seems silent, it means you have entered a test. He is not absent. He is watching how you respond. Will you keep believing when nothing changes? Will you still worship when your prayers seem unanswered? Will you keep trusting when the road ahead looks dark? The silence of God is not a sign of distance. It is the proving ground of devotion. It is where faith matures beyond feelings and learns to rest in trust. The strongest faith is not born in moments of answered prayer, but in moments when the heavens seem still, yet the heart keeps saying, "I know my Redeemer lives." Look at the life of Abraham. God promised him a son, but for years nothing happened. He was told he would become the father of many nations, yet his wife remained barren. Every day that passed seemed like a contradiction to the promise. But Abraham did not give up. The Bible says he hoped against hope, believing that what God had spoken, he was also able to perform. It was in that silence, in that long waiting, that Abraham's faith became unshakable. He learned that when God delays, it is not denial, it is development. The promise was sure. It simply needed the maturity of time, and when the time was ripe, God turned the silence into laughter through the birth of Isaac. In the same way, God uses the waiting season to mold your heart. When Joseph was thrown into a pit and then into prison, it looked as if God had abandoned him. The dreams God gave him seemed buried under pain and rejection. Yet the truth was that God was not absent. He was working in secret. Every day in that prison was preparing Joseph for the palace. Every silent night was training his spirit for leadership. When the appointed time came, God opened the prison doors in a single moment, and Joseph stepped into destiny. What took years of silence was fulfilled in one divine hour. The silence of God is never empty. It is filled with purpose waiting to be revealed. When a seed is buried in the soil, it disappears from sight. It seems dead, hidden in the darkness, forgotten. But what we cannot see is the miracle happening underground. The seed is breaking, stretching, and transforming so it can rise stronger than before. If the seed could speak, it might cry out from the darkness, "Why have I been buried?" But the gardener would reply, "You are not buried to die, you are buried to grow." In the same way, God sometimes buries us in seasons of silence. He allows us to be hidden, to feel forgotten, so that something powerful can take root inside us. The darkness is not punishment, it is preparation for growth. When the time comes, you will break through the surface, and everyone will see what God was doing in secret. There are prayers you prayed months or even years ago that you thought God ignored, but not a single word escaped his notice. Heaven has a record of every tear, every cry, every whisper of faith you made in the night. Just because he didn't respond immediately doesn't mean he didn't hear. God is a Father who answers not according to our timing, but according to his wisdom. He knows when the answer will build us and when it might break us. So he waits until our heart is ready, until our character can handle the blessing, until our faith can sustain what he wants to give. The silence is his way of protecting your promise. Sometimes the waiting season is where we come to truly know God. When everything is easy, we praise him for what he does. But when everything is silent, we learn to love him for who he is. It is in the stillness that intimacy grows. It is in the quiet that we hear the faint whisper of his voice saying, "Be still and know that I am God." If you are in that season now, do not give up. God's silence is the training ground of champions. Every man and woman used by God has walked through that desert of silence. It is where strength is born, humility is developed, and dependency on God becomes real. The silence is not a wall between you and God. It is the womb of your next miracle. Even Jesus experienced divine silence. Hanging on the cross, he cried, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Heaven was silent, but redemption was unfolding. The silence of the Father did not mean abandonment. It meant purpose was being fulfilled. In that silence, the greatest victory in human history was born. So, when heaven feels quiet, remember it is often a sign that something great is being accomplished. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are being prepared. Hold on in faith. Keep praying even when it seems pointless. Keep worshiping even when the tears flow. Keep trusting even when the answers delay. For soon the silence will break, and the same God who was quiet will speak a word that changes everything. The waiting season will end, and you will see that every silent moment was filled with purpose. Every delay was divine design, and every unanswered prayer was the preparation for something far greater than you imagined. God's silence is not his absence. It is his preparation for your breakthrough. Every trial has an expiry date. No pain is permanent, and no night lasts forever. The God who allows the storm is also the one who determines when it ends. There is a divine clock in heaven, and when it strikes your appointed hour, everything that once resisted you must bow to the authority of God's timing. For too long, you may have lived under the weight of unanswered questions, wondering why certain doors stayed closed, why opportunities slipped away, or why the breakthrough took so long to appear. But in the realm of the Spirit, delay does not mean denial. God was never ignoring your prayers. He was aligning everything according to his perfect time. The end of your tough time comes not by chance, but by divine scheduling. When heaven declares enough, every burden begins to lift, every chain begins to break, and every tear finds its meaning. There was an appointed time for Israel to leave Egypt. 400 years they endured hardship, oppression, and slavery. Generations were born and died waiting for deliverance. But when the fullness of time came, God's voice thundered from the burning bush, saying, I have seen the affliction of my people, and I have come down to deliver them. What does that tell us? It means that even when it feels as if God has forgotten, he is watching every moment. He is not blind to your suffering or deaf to your cry. He is waiting for the perfect moment when everything aligns for your release. When the time arrived, not even Pharaoh's army could stop Israel's deliverance. The same power that split the Red Sea for them is still alive and working for you. No bondage, no circumstance, and no human opposition can hold you when God says, it is time. When Joseph was thrown into the pit and sold as a slave, it looked as if his dreams were over. The promise God gave him seemed impossible. But what Joseph didn't know was that the pain he endured was part of a process leading him to the palace. The pit, the prison, and the betrayal were only temporary stations on the road to destiny. There came a day, a divinely appointed day, when the king sent for him, and in one moment everything changed. One sunrise, Joseph was a prisoner. By sunset, he was a governor. That is what happens when your time comes. No human power, no demonic opposition, no history of failure can stop the plan of God once his timing is fulfilled. What took years to suffer can take seconds to reverse in God's hands. The tough time was necessary to prepare the vessel, but when the vessel was ready, the door opened swiftly. Many people give up just before their appointed time because the pressure of the process feels unbearable. The enemy always attacks hardest when you are closest to breakthrough. He knows that if you quit now, you will never see what was prepared for you. But when you endure in faith, when you refuse to give up even in your weakest hour, you position yourself to step into divine timing. Just as a woman's labor intensifies before the birth, the battle grows fierce before the blessing. The contraction of pressure means that something new is about to be born. Do not misinterpret your toughest moment as defeat. It may be the sign that your appointed time has finally arrived. There is a divine rhythm to life. God moves in seasons. There is a time to sow and a time to reap, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to endure and a time to be lifted. No winter lasts forever. Spring must come. And when spring arrives, nothing can hold the seed from breaking the soil. You have cried, prayed, and waited through your winter season. Now the Spirit of God is declaring that your new season is here. The cold days of struggle are melting under the warmth of His favor. You have reached the moment when what you suffered for will finally make sense. The same hands that allowed the pruning will now cause the fruit to appear. Every hardship has a divine expiration date written in heaven. The problem is that we cannot see the label. We only see the pain, not knowing it is already set to end at a specific moment. When a farmer plants a seed, he does not dig it up every day to check if it's growing. He trusts the process, knowing there is an appointed time for harvest. Likewise, you must trust God's timing. Even when you cannot see progress, trust that something is happening beneath the surface. The unseen hand of God is orchestrating your promotion. The door that stayed shut will open at the exact second it needs to. The opportunity that seemed lost will reappear in a greater form. God never misses His timing. He is never late. He is never early. He moves precisely when the moment is right. The woman with the issue of blood suffered for 12 years. Doctors failed her, society rejected her, and hope seemed gone. Yet one day, one appointed day, she heard that Jesus was passing by. That single day changed her entire life. She pressed through the crowd, touched the hem of His garment, and instantly her tough time ended. For 12 years nothing changed, but in one moment everything did. That is the power of divine timing. You may have endured for years, but it takes only one God-ordained encounter to end what years of struggle could not fix. When the time comes, even the things that resisted you will start working for you. The people who ignored you will suddenly remember your name. The paths that were blocked will open effortlessly. That is why you must not give up in the middle of your trial, because your situation can shift in a single breath from heaven. God has already set the hour of your breakthrough. The delays were divine, the waiting was holy, the tears were the watering of your promise. Now heaven is announcing that the season of sorrow is closing. You have endured the night. Now the morning has come. The same God who appointed the beginning of your struggle has now appointed its end. Your trial had a purpose, and now it has reached its expiration. The end of your tough time has arrived, not by your might, not by your effort, but because heaven's calendar has turned in your favor. There comes a point in every believer's journey when pain no longer defines you. It refines you. What once seemed like the end becomes the very beginning of something greater. God never allows pain without purpose, nor does he waste a single tear. The moments that broke you, the seasons that humbled you, and the storms that shook your faith were not meant to destroy you, but to transform you. Every trial that wounded your heart was planting a seed of testimony inside your spirit. You may not have seen it then, but in the invisible realm, God was shaping your pain into power. The furnace that burned you has now forged you into someone stronger, wiser, and ready to carry the weight of his glory. The test you endured will soon become the testimony that brings others hope. Think about how a diamond is made. It begins as ordinary carbon, deep underground, under immense pressure and heat. For years, it remains unseen, hidden in darkness. But that same pressure that could have crushed it is the very force that transforms it into something precious and radiant. When the diamond finally comes to light, no one sees the years of crushing. It only shines. That is how God works in the lives of his children. The pressure, the tears, the sleepless nights, and the battles that felt unbearable were not wasted. They were forming the strength and purity of your spirit. God was turning your pain into power, preparing you for the moment when your life would reflect his glory. When we look through Scripture, we see that every person greatly used by God had to go through breaking before blessing. Moses was broken in the wilderness before he became a deliverer. David was hunted and humiliated before he wore the crown. Job lost everything before he saw double restoration. Even Jesus himself was broken on the cross before resurrection power was revealed. The pattern never changes because the principle is divine. Without crushing, there is no anointing. The olive must be pressed to release oil. The grape must be crushed to produce wine. And the heart must be tested to release faith that cannot be shaken. God allows us to go through the breaking so that what comes out of us glorifies him. When you were walking through that valley, you probably prayed for God to take the pain away. But instead of removing it, he gave you strength to endure it. He knew that through endurance, you would gain spiritual authority. Every scar you carry is not a mark of shame, but a testimony of survival. Those scars speak louder than words. They declare that the grace of God was sufficient even in your weakest hour. The very thing that was sent to break you has now become the proof that you cannot be broken. Pain is temporary, but what it produces in you is eternal. You are no longer the same person who entered that storm. You are wiser, deeper, and more compassionate. Your tears have given you eyes that see what others cannot. Sometimes your greatest ministry is born from your deepest misery. The experiences you thought disqualified you are the very ones God will use to qualify you to help others. You cannot comfort the broken until you have known what it means to be broken. You cannot speak healing until you have tasted pain. God trusted you with that suffering because he knew he could turn it into a testimony that would bring healing to many. When people hear your story and see that you made it through, their faith will rise. Your survival becomes someone else's revival. The devil thought he was burying you, but God was planting you. Out of the soil of your struggle will grow fruit that will feed others. There is power in the testimony that comes from pain. It carries an authority that theory never can. People can argue with your beliefs, but they cannot argue with your experience. When you say, "I was down, but God lifted me," those words carry the fragrance of truth. When you testify, "I was sick, but he healed me. I was lost, but he found me," you are not just telling a story. You are revealing the power of God in your life. Every time you share your journey, hell trembles, because your testimony reminds the enemy that he lost. The very weapons formed against you have now become evidence of God's faithfulness. Your pain has made you powerful, not because of the suffering itself, but because of the presence of God that walked with you through it. You did not survive on your own strength. The hand of God carried you through the fire, and now you carry his fire within you. The trials have given you authority in the Spirit. You can now look at someone who is going through what you once endured and say with confidence, "You will make it. I know because I did." That is the beauty of redemption. What once made you weep now makes you wise. The tears you shed in secret have become oil that lights the path for others. God is not finished with the story that was written through your pain. In fact, the part that seemed most painful will soon be the most powerful. The pit that once humiliated you will become the platform that elevates you. Those who once looked down on you will see what the Lord has done and stand in awe. Your test will not only prove your faith, it will proclaim his glory. Do not hide your scars. They are holy marks of grace. They tell the world that even in your weakest moment, God was faithful. The valley you walked through will echo with songs of victory. The same mouth that once cried out in despair will now shout in praise. You are stepping into a season where your testimony will speak louder than your pain ever did. People will see peace where there once was panic, strength where there once was weakness, joy where there once was sorrow. What you thought was the end of your story was only the beginning of God's glory. You walked through fire, but you came out gold. You faced loss, but you found purpose. You endured breaking, but now you carry blessing. Your test has become your testimony, and your pain has become your power. And now, through your story, others will believe that God still turns suffering into strength, ashes into beauty, and tears into triumph. Beloved, as we come to the close of this message, hear this with all your heart. Your night has ended. The voice of God is speaking clearly. The end of your tough time has arrived. You have walked through darkness. You have endured the silence, and you have fought battles that no one else understood. Yet through it all, God was never absent. He was working in secret, shaping you for this very moment. The season that once broke you has now birthed wisdom, strength, and unshakable faith within you. You are not the same person who entered the fire. You are stronger, purer, and ready to step into divine purpose. Every tear you shed was a seed, and now the harvest of joy is ready to spring forth. The things that once seemed impossible will soon unfold before your eyes. The waiting has not been in vain. The silence has not been wasted. The pain has not been pointless. It was all part of heaven's plan to prepare you for this new beginning. The potter has finished his shaping, and now he holds you up as his masterpiece. So lift your head high. The chains of yesterday are broken. The doors that were closed are swinging open. The same God who brought you through will now bring you into a season of restoration and divine reward. You will testify of his goodness. You will walk in his favor. You will shine with his glory. This is your appointed hour. The old chapter is closed. The new chapter has begun. Walk forward with faith, with peace, and with praise in your heart, for God's message is clear and unstoppable. The end of your tough time has arrived.